All right, second grade, so now we are going to practice creating some partitions and so partitioning is what we're practicing, and we are going to be creating fractions while partitioning. So we're going to see this shape right here. And what's the name of this shape, everyone? This is a triangle. So I want you guys to think, how can this shape be partitioned into two fair shares? Fair shares means that we want both of the parts to be equal. So I have a line over here, and I'm thinking, Miss Sigler's thinking, I think the easiest way I could probably partition this shape is by drawing a cut or a line right down the center. So that's the first way I thought of. Do you guys think there's another way to partition this shape? Well, what if we did this? Did we partition it into equal or to two fair shares or two equal shares? We did not, because this side, this part is much bigger than this part over here. So we have to recognize that the shares need to be fair and equal. Maybe if I twist this, create a horizontal line. Do we think that these are two fair shares? I'm hearing some yeses, I'm hearing some no's. So to me, well, if we wanted to measure, we could check for sure, but just looking at this bottom right here, it looks a lot bigger than this top right here. So I don't think that that is a way that we can partition this into two fair shares. So I'm going to actually just put it back the way we had it, because I think that this is the way that we will be partitioning this shape into two fair shares. So what would you call each of these fair shares? This is one part, and this is another part, and they are equal. So over here, we could label this side as 1/2. So this is 1/2. And guess what? If that's 1/2, so is this. And so we have 1/2, and then we have another half, so we have two halves that make the whole triangle. So 1/2, and then I'm gonna put another one over here and say that this is 1/2. And so these are called halves that make up a whole. All right, let's do another one. Over here, so what's this shape we have? What is it? So I heard some people say square, I heard some people say rectangle, I heard some people say quadrilateral, and you guys are all correct. This is a square, it is also a rectangle, and it is a quadrilateral. We learned that in the last unit. And so I want to think, how can this shape be partitioned into four fair shares? So here, I'm actually going to go back and copy my little line so I can just use that same line here. Well, let's think. If I put it here, and then if I do this, and this. Ooh. So I have 1 part, 2 part, 3 part, 4 part, but are these parts equal? Are these fair shares? They are not fair shares. So I need to figure out a way to create 4 fair shares here. And I think that the first thing I want to do is find 2 fair shares. We're going to start with 2 fair shares. So if I look, I'm kind of eyeballing it. And sometimes you're going to have to draw these and it's not going to be perfect. That's okay. Just do the best you can. So now I see 2 fair shares, okay? And from 2 fair shares, if I turn both of this part into 2 more fair shares and this part into 2 fair shares, then I will mean I have a total of 4 fair shares. So what if I do that, and that. Well, do these 4 different parts, they all seem to be the same size. So do we have 4 fair shares now? Yes, we do. So this share, this share, this share, and this share are all equal. So we did just partition this into 4 fair shares. I have a question for you though. Is there another way we could have created 4 shares? Some of y'all are saying no, but I think I heard one person say yes at least. So hopefully, so let's see what we can do to create another fair share. Another way to do it. I am going to do, I'm going to put this one here. I'm going to do this one here. It's a little bit easier to draw using a pencil, and then a ruler makes it really, really a lot simpler. There we go. All right, let's look. What do y'all see? I see 1, 2, 3, 4 parts, 4 shares, and are they equal? Yes, these are equal fair shares. Okay, so this is another way to create 4 fair shares on this square, on this shape. So there's actually, I can think of 2 more ways to do it, but I'm not going to give you guys all the answers. It is just important for us to know that there is usually more than one way to partition a shape, okay? So sometimes there's just one way, but sometimes there's lots of ways. Like I can think of 4 ways to create 4 fair shares on this square. But that's 2 of the examples of how to do it. And what would we call this? So we have 1 part, 2 part, 3 part, 4 parts. So there's 4 parts that we take to make this whole square. And now we are going to label them. This is 1/4. Over here, this is also 1/4. Over here, we have another, what is it? 1/4, and over here, this is a 1/4. All right, so that's what we can name each of these shapes. And if we have 2 put together, so this is 1/4, this is 1/4, now we have 2/4. 2/4 when they're put together, or 1, 2, 3, that would be 3/4. So next shape, let's look at it. Can this shape be partitioned into 2 fair shares? Of course it can. Of course it can. So we are going to try and partition it. Did that just create 2 fair shares? Say, no, Miss Sigler, don't be silly. Those are not fair. One of those is way bigger than the other. So we're going to try and rearrange this line to create 2 fair shares. And I think that maybe right there. There. Okay, so now we have 2 fair shares. Is there more than one way? Does my line have to be straight up and down? No, my line could be horizontal, and that would create 2 fair shares as well. But this is the example I'm going to show you. There is another way to do that though. So say wow. Okay. So there's 2 fair shares right there. Now we want to know, can we make 4 fair shares? Let's see. So I'm going to add 3 lines, which creates 4 different parts. And let's look. Well, on the last shape, I could do 4 vertical lines, and that gave me 4 equal parts. But do I have 4 equal parts now doing the same thing on the circle? I don't, because these parts are not the same size as these parts right here. So these are not equal parts. So we need to figure out a different way to create those 4 fair shares. What do you guys think we could do? Thank you for participating. I heard someone say we could do 1 line like this and 1 line like this. And so let's see if that works. There we go, right there. Does this look like a food that you guys have eaten before? It does. What food does this look like? I heard some people say pizza. I heard some people say pie. Both of those are correct. We use fractions a lot when we're talking about food. So this is an example, or that would be a real life time we would use that when we cut a pizza into pieces to share out. And we all want the same size pizza, don't we? So there we go. So there's 4 fair shares. And there might be another way to do that too. I'm going to let you guys explore with that a little bit later. So next one, can this shape be partitioned into 2 fair shares? I heard some people say yes. Let's try it out. So my line starts out being up and down, which is called a vertical line. But you might, so that is 2 fair shares. What if I had started it like this right here? Are those 2 fair shares? These are not equal parts, are they? So these are not 2 fair shares, which means that that was not a fraction. But if we use the vertical line here, the vertical line does let us create 2 fair shares. What about 4 fair shares? Well, let's create that so I'm going to go ahead and we'll do one there. We'll do one here. Did that create, let's try it like this, maybe a little bit over. Did that create 4 fair shares? It did not. That was not 4 fair shares because these are not the equal size parts that we need for it to be fair shares. So those are not fourths because they are not fair shares. What about if I do it like this? What if I try what I did for my circle? Are those fair shares? Are those fourths? They are not fourths because look, these parts are not the same size as these parts. These are not equal parts, therefore they cannot be 4 fair shares. And why can't we have 4 fair shares here? I want you guys to think about that. So some people are pointing out that there's some extra space over here, which makes it a lot harder to create 4 equal parts. So we cannot partition this into 4 fair shares. So that is our last shape. So you guys are going to be completing basically the same activity on your own, using the PDF pencil feature on your iPad. And then you guys don't forget that you have extra math also. I can give you a little bit more detail on how to complete this activity in the next video. So see you guys there.